Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Ryan Clark recalls training camp scuffle after Antonio Brown cussed out Dick LeBeau, "We lost total control." The Pittsburgh Steelers have had numerous talented players throughout the years, but maybe none better than wide receiver Antonio Brown. Brown was on pace to potentially be the greatest receiver in NFL history before he ran himself out of town. Early on, there may have been signs that Brown was going to be too much of a loose cannon. As former Steelers safety Ryan Clark explains, one training camp practice was evidence of that, right after Brown received his first long-term deal. On a recent episode of his podcast The Pivot, Clark and co-hosts Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor recalled their most notable memories from training camp. Clark's memory was of a practice in 2012 when Brown mouthed off to the Steelers' defense. "He gets his money, we're doing one-on-ones," Clark said about Brown. "Keenan Lewis is playing defense on him, and he routing Keenan up. I'm talking about killing him, so Keenan holding him now. He's like, tell him not to hold me. I'm the franchise. He talking big, so Coach LeBeau, who never really says anything, he's like, man, get to the huddle. So, he cussed Coach LeBeau out, and then Ike," Taylor said, "Dickie? He go and cuss Dickie?" Looking at the way Brown acted later in his career, this wouldn't even be categorized in the 10 most unbelievable things he's done. It pales in comparison to him stripping off his jersey and running off the field in the middle of a game, but at the time, talking to LeBeau like that was sacrilegious. Those players all still love LeBeau to this day, and disrespecting him like that was out of the question. Clark explained he got in Brown's face to talk back at him, firing up the Steelers' defense the rest of the afternoon. "I was telling him, this is gonna be it. You are never gonna spend any of that money because I'm gonna finish it today. I remember, we're fired up, and Troy Polamalu looked at me. And he never snapped his helmet, and he always had his hair in a bun, and he snapped on his helmet. It's a different type of day now. Now we blitzing, I'm flipping running backs that trying to get to me. Troy slinging Ben around. We fighting every snap. We lost total control of it. If you've made Polamalu angry, you're in the wrong. It's as simple as that." Brown was doing enough antics that Polamalu and the rest of the defense felt the need to treat that practice like a real game. Considering the names that were on that defense, that was not going to end well for the offense, and it's a shame it had to get to that point. Brown was a young player, only entering his third year in the league, but treating your coaches like that is still inexcusable. Brown and Taylor ended up coming to blows during that practice, needing to be separated. It's certainly not the way a cohesive team with Super Bowl aspirations should treat each other. As Clark explains, it was not a typical Steelers practice. "That's a day of football I will never forget," he said. "In all of my years, it's the most physical day of practice I've ever seen." Considering that Steelers defense had players like Polamalu, James Ferrier, and James Harrison on it, that practice being the most physical Clark experienced speaks volumes. It's apparent Brown's me-first attitude was always present and was only brought to the surface more as his career went on. He was incredibly talented and dedicated to his craft, but outbursts like the one at LeBeau are the reason why locker rooms soured on him. Based on Clark's story, it seems Brown allowed money to change him, acting like the hopes of the franchise rested on him. In reality, that Steelers defense had just won a Super Bowl 4 years prior and had lost one just 2 years after that. True, they were getting older, but they still deserved the respect of younger players. For any team to win a Super Bowl, everyone needs to be on the same page. It's about the collective, not any singular piece. The Steelers have dealt with players with bad attitudes since that incident, but recently, it's become less and less of a problem. Mike Tomlin's mantra of wanting volunteers, not hostages, seems to have cleared the way. It's all right for players like Brown to brag and talk trash when they're the best in the world, but there's lines players can't cross. Brown did, and the Steelers' defense let him and the offense know about it. The stories that matter, and many that don't, as the Steelers open Training Camp 2024. Steelers Training Camp 2024 is upon us at St. Vincent College. The team reports on Wednesday. You know what that means. Innumerable stories of who brought the biggest TV into the dorm rooms. Which player is rooming with which teammate? Who showed up in the flashiest car, or helicopter/fire truck? Also, what player put on the most weight? What player lost the most weight? And, no doubt, both players will also be in the best shape of their respective lives. Plus, I'm willing to bet this is the year that we will have no excuses and it is Super Bowl or bust. Even though the team has busted short of the Super Bowl the past 13 years and there have always been plenty of excuses. So, with that in mind, let's preemptively sift through the usual training camp fodder and get to the stories that really matter. Or, perhaps better said, let's point out in advance what stories won't matter at all come January. What doesn't matter? Anything you read/hear/see about how great of a natural leader Russell Wilson is. How much of a command of the huddle he has. His voice in the offensive meeting room. How much he has picked up the playbook. Those are easy quotes for the players to give and even easier stories for the media to churn out. Think about it. Whenever a veteran quarterback switches teams, how often do you ever come across a story or quote from someone saying, "Boy, I thought this guy knew what he was doing with his old team. But, now that he is here, he is lost, and, frankly, I don't think he has very good leadership skills either." Even in Denver with Wilson, it was supposed to be a great fit. Then the games began, and it wasn't, with either coach he had there. Remember, many people talked themselves into thinking the Mitch Trubisky experiment was going to work in Pittsburgh until the regular season, or maybe even preseason, games started too. Steelers host Pittsburgh native QB for workout. The Pittsburgh Steelers are hosting Pittsburgh native and former University of Pittsburgh quarterback Ben Dinucci for a workout before training camp, according to Aaron Wilson of KPRC2 in Houston. Dinucci last played in the NFL in 2023 for the Denver Broncos, where he joined their practice squad. The Dallas Cowboys drafted him in the 7th round of the 2020 NFL Draft before letting him go in 2021. When he did not play in the NFL in 2022, Dinucci found a home with the Seattle Sea Dragons of the XFL. Dinucci has played in 3 career games and started in 1 game in 2020 for the Cowboys. His career stats are not sterling, throwing for 219 yards with a 53.5 completion percentage. Dinucci is a Pittsburgh native and played at Pine Richland High School, where he became one of the more prolific quarterbacks in the WPIAL. In his senior season, Dinucci threw for 4,000 yards, becoming the first WPIAL player to do so. He committed to Pitt and even played early in his career. Dinucci started multiple games in his sophomore season but was eventually replaced by a then freshman, Kenny Pickett. Following that season, he transferred to James Madison, leading the Dukes to prominence in 2018 and 2019. Dinucci is the 3rd player the Steelers have worked out in the last 2 days. They hosted fullback Torrey Carter and defensive end Marquis Spencer on Monday. The reasoning behind these workouts is likely to have another name in case of injury or unexpected circumstances. The Steelers have 4 quarterbacks on the roster, including undrafted rookie John Reese Plumlee. If you purchase a product or register for an account through a link on our site, we may receive compensation. By using this site, you consent to our user agreement and agree that your clicks, interactions, and personal information may be collected, recorded, and/or stored by us and social media and other third-party partners in accordance with our privacy policy. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Ben Dinucci? Leave your opinion in the comments.